Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to this community showdown. It's going to be Tzeentch, led by Prepare for the Bear, facing off against the Lizardmen, who shall be helmed by Hadries here on the altar of the champion. Mazdamundi, most likely going to be on foot, versus, or on his stool, I suppose, versus the Changeling. Okay, so Changeling typically against dinosaurs, probably going to be changing into Tzeentch would be my guess, and yeah, he has no spells, nothing else, so he's just going to be a slightly more expensive Tzeentch, which against dinos is pretty good. They do have a fair amount of big targets for you to shoot at, and it is no joke. So we got the Changeling here. The front line here is going to be Marauders of Tzeentch, backed up by spears on the backside. More spears to help with feral cold ones and things like that. And a little bit of shooting in the back via the blues and the sour guts as well. The caster is going to be a metal caster. So trying to use this power combo, which is using the Skull of Catan to give you 120% spell mastery. Pretty nuts. And then you overcast the final transmutation. And you can like nuke a blob or a character really, really heavily. It's a big investment though. It's kind of like you're putting a lot of marbles into that. And the Skull of Catan can only be used once, so you need to make sure you get it right. And that's going to be it for the Tzeentch army. So just a lot of infantry. Tzeentch the Changeling. The Changeling is very expensive. Even when you cut all of his abilities and just have him as a transform character, it's very, very pricey. Aside from that, we're going to be seeing Hadries here rocking some Vanguard deployment, which is always a good idea in domination mode. You want to get the old skirmishers up to grab the points on the sides. We are going to be seeing the Skink skirmishers heading to Objective 2, while the rest of the dinosaur army does surge forth. Feral cold ones. The clever girl's going to be grabbing the points pretty quickly here. Mazdamundi, what is he rocking spell-wise? Combat of Cassandora, very good against, halberds and any sort of Chaos Warrior type unit. And yes, it is going to be Tzeentch the Changeling, the classic. And Lord Mazdamundi does have Nets, Combat of Cassandora, and Apotheosis. Not a bad kit. And on this map, he has a pretty good spot to hide, right? He could just sit behind this pillar, and Tzeentch isn't going to be able to draw a good line of sight on him, most likely. So the cold ones do grab the point, cracking a cold one open with the boys. All right, so feral cold ones are being watched by the Watcher. They do get the points immediately. And on the side here, Hadries is going to be using a Sacred Croxagord and his feral cold ones to get a triple cap on Tzeentch out of the gates. Here we see the Chaos Sorcerer Metal doing a little bit of scouting, going to get poked by these Skink skirmishers here. Tzeentch obviously did reveal them, so the entire map is visible to Prepare for the Bear right now. Now the Tzeentchian army will probably have a decent fight in the front. Marauders will trade okay into these Skinks. They should win that fight, and if some of the spears can saturate into the feral cold ones, should be somewhat cost effective, but Hadries does have a lot of stopping power, and the army here of Tzeentch obviously is heavily indexed into the Changeling. He's a pricey one. We do see this Bastillodon of the Rev Crystal come out, but now the dreaded Tzeentch Changebringers are here. Very, very scary. What's the answer going to be for the dinosaurs? You do have Skink Javelins, but aside from that, Hadries does not seem to have a lot that is going to be very apt at dealing with them. I would wager he's going to be calling in Pterodons or something like that, or maybe some Salamanders to poke them. Who knows? We'll have to see. So on the middle point, we do see Tzeentch starting to get the objective, and the Croxagore is probably going to be piling in to fight. Honestly, if the Croxagores take a charge against the Changeling, that would be a pretty good call. Get in there and start punching him in the face when he's close to you and isn't able to shoot his bow. And now we see the Popcorn Bandit to the back here, the Blues, ripping some shots into the Croxagores. And Ruination of Cities. Oh, that was a good one. What a nice Ruination of Cities there. The Blue Horrors get wrecked, the Marauders get hit, and the shields of the Sour Guts do get taken down as the frontline engagement is now underway. And yeah, I would say Hadries is not going to leave home without an answer against these guys, right? They're one of the best units on Tzeentch. And we do see the anti-large Ripperdactyls, which is a good choice. They'll obviously rip apart the Changebringers, but they should be able to take down a unit of Screamers as well, although they are kind of getting caught in a very weird angle. You can see they're all like hugging the pillar. It's a bit of a multi-tiered fight here. Now back on Objective 1, it currently is owned by Tzeentch. A lot of Marauders up on the point, but the Lizard Blob has moved in quite angrily. We see the Skinks and the Croxagores with their Power Fists, as well as Lord Chungus himself, trying to get involved here, and Tzeentch doing some wild anime moves, but it looks like he just did a T-pose and then came back down there. The classic Total War stuff, you gotta love it. Cohort of Fwaddle punching through the Marauders on the other side, but Tzeentch getting a pretty healthy amount of firepower. The Sour Guts as well as the Blue Horrors getting nice shots. Combat of Cassandora coming down there, and it does actually do a little bit of friendly fire against the feral cold ones and barely tickles those Marauders. So overall, that was a bit of a win there for the forces of Prepare for the Bear. Up in the sky, somehow, Palpatine has returned. The Changebringers are here, and this is going to be giving Hadries a ton of trouble. Like, this is a big, big problem. I think that the Ripperdactyls were really focused on taking down the Changebringers, and they weren't fighting back against these Screamers. It's hard to say. And there's the Skull of Catan. That's going to be brutal. So an overcasted final transmutation with the Skull of Catan active. Yeah, you can see it. The 120% spell mastery, a lot of firepower going into the Bastillodon right there. And the Shield of the Old Ones is active and is trying its best to hang in there. But yeah, that is going to be a problem. Those Changebringers need to be dealt with. Now, Lizardmen do have access to Tempest. Tempest would be really, really good here, probably against the Changebringers. In the back, we do see the Screamers. jumping on Lord Mazdamundi on his toilet seat, and he's going to be trying to battle these guys as he, you know, he's not the best fighter, but he does pack a little bit of a punch, and he should do magic damage too, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go ahead and check. Yeah, Mazdamundi does some magic damage. So helps a little bit. On the far side, Dino's controlling the objective, but the middle objective is going to be going pretty heavily to Tzeentch, but we do see a call-in of the Ripperdactyls. Are these the Arawars? No, these are the anti-infantry variant, which I don't know how well they're going to be doing against the Screamers. They probably lose that fight, especially with the Changebringers helping. So Hadries is going to be retreating here. Yeah, I think he had the Colossodon Hunters, or was it regular Ripperdactyls? I thought it was the Colossodon Hunters before, but I might have misread that. But regardless, up in the sky, Ripperdactyl's going to be taking the fight. They don't really have too much lovin' coming their way. Not a lot of ground support from the dinos, like any chameleon skinks or any salamanders, nothing like that. A nice bombardment right there, though. That was a beautiful one by Hadries, and he really needs it. Here you can see the Apotheosis from Mazdamundi, going to be trying to salvage these Ripperdactyls. You could land them on the ground and try and lure some of these units to the ground where they could be attacked by the skinks or other units. And here these Marauders going to be broken, and the objective could flip back to the dinosaurs. Now, Tzeentch the Changeling, very, very useful here, actually, honestly. Like, Tzeentch is a very matchup-defining unit. He's very good in a ton of matchups. So being able to bring him on the Tzeentch roster, I think, is pretty massive. Very, very cool tech. And you're paying, what, like a 600-700 gold premium, but ultimately I think it's worth it. And this guy, the Ripperdactyl's trying to fight it out, but there are two Screamers. No, we have got the Chaos Searcher here, and in the back it's going to be more Ripperdactyls being called in. That's a lot of stopping power, should be able to get the job done. And the Lizards are certainly losing a lot of ground right now. They're going to need to get it back when the Changebringers run out of ammo. It's the dreaded face-to-foot style. You just have to let them punch you in the face till they get tired. The Homer Simpson approach, if you guys remember that Simpsons episode. But yeah, they're going to go down here. Ripperdactyls will take apart the Screamers with, you know, a lot of effort. And we do see the Chaos Sorcerer here also paying the Troll toll a little bit, but a lot of fire Overwatch here. We see the Changeling as well as these Changebringers. A lot of change up in here. Just doing work. But if that caster goes down, that's a pretty big win for the forces of the dinos. Now, on the far side objective, it is in flux, but it looks like it's being held onto by the dinos, just barely. The cohort of Fodl, Skink Skirmishers, and some clever girls fighting tooth and nail on this point. But it looks like Prepare for the Bear is here for business as well. He's got some blues, and the Spears are going to be problematic when they eventually defeat these Feral Cold Ones, and then the Spears move on to the point here. Hadries could be under a little bit of pressure. Now on the backside, we do see a net going down to the Changebringers. That's going to be very, very strong there. So they do decide to land on the ground, which is an excellent choice to kind of lure them down to some of the Zangors and other supporting pieces. And oh, the Chungus is going to be dropping a banishment here, but great micro by Prepare for the Bear, really clean. He runs the Zangors and doesn't run them through the Vortex, so that was an excellent one right there. And it looks like that's going to be the Tzeentch's Firestorm ability, so that is going to be the Big Bombard. So that's the army ability of Tzeentch. And look, we're in the realm of Tzeentch. It's perfection. This is great. What a thematic battle here. But it drops, kind of tickles the skinks, not too much damage, honestly, and the Ripperdactyls are able to effectively hunt down the Changebringers. They're out of ammo, so you don't really need to chase them anymore, to be honest, but, you know, sometimes you just got to get that moral victory. Now, Mazdamundi is kind of low. Ripperdactyls are a pretty hard counter against Furies. Not a hard counter, but they're a counter. They have anti-infantry and do a ton of damage, so Furies are infantry-sized, and you can see the DPS immediately makes them crumble, so they get karate chop pretty good. Ripperdactyls here, given the cold-blooded, and up on the point, we do see the point going back to the Lizards here, as there are a lot of Coldon Riders and Croxagors on their way over. That's going to be a bunch of stopping power, and Mazdamundi does drop some fat heals. Now, Hadries has been healing a lot this game, not as much from Tzeentch. Tzeentch does have shield healing, but that's pretty much it. I think that probably at this point in the game, Hadries might be up by like 400 or 500 value, if even. It could even be like a dead even game. It's going to be pretty darn close here. So the Sour Guts getting some nice shots, while Tzeentch probably getting about 2k value at least. Yeah, he's at 2.1k, so really not bad at all. And the caster is gone for Tzeentch, though, so they're not going to be generating any of their army abilities. Maybe Tzeentch will decide to call that back in. We'll have to see. This point is controlled by Tzeentch right now, but I think the dinosaurs probably take this one over. We do see the Ripperdactyls just ripping things apart. Big damage against the Zangors, and the Power Fist Croxagors coming straight out of 40k, dude, with their Power Fist. Going to be punching some of these goat people in the face. And looks like a Comet of Cassandora, I believe it is. Yeah, we see the heavens open up, so the heavens want a piece of this battle, and they're going to be dropping the base. And they drop the base extra hard there on these Zangors. Zangors get routed off, and the Lizardmen are going to be overwhelming that objective. The Beastmen are going to be losing it. On this side, though, really nice play here by Tzeentch. Tzeentch is able to get their clutches up on the point, largely due to the efficiency of Tzeentch. Tzeentch has been punishing these Croxagors all day, just kind of parking on the middle, getting really good value shots, and trolling and doing his thing. And that's what Tzeentch does. Tzeentch is basically just a giant troll, right? So now the Lizards probably going to have to make their way over to the middle objective, I suspect. They certainly can't win on one at this point. Prepare for the Bear is actually ahead on points, as a matter of fact. Ripperdactyl still tearing apart the loose infantry that are hanging around. And what is the play going to be for both players? Hadri's calling in Clever Girls. And what is Tzeentch going to be calling in next? Tzeentch sitting on a lot, sitting on 1,000 supplies, which makes me think they probably are going to call in their caster to try and get their wizard back. They most likely have more final transmutations. I think I only saw one big one, so you can usually get 3, I think, over the course of a game. And that would be pretty punishing, right? If like the lizards come in and go for a blob fight on objective 1 with this huge core of units, and you get them with a big final transmutation, that's going to be game blouses most likely. That could close it out. So I suspect that's what it's going to be. And that caster is not cheap on the disc. He's probably like 1,500 to 1,700, give or take, maybe a little bit cheaper. And that's hard to say. With Skull of Catan as well, it's something to think about there. So Feral Cold Ones do surge in. They do attack into Marauder Spears. They might be able to just win because the spears are low. The Lizard momentum is coming strong, but the Ripperdactyls up in the sky are losing. Screamers of Tzeentch doing huge work this game. They've been really dominating the Air Force fights, and maybe we could even see another Changebringer being called out by Tzeentch. And what's it going to be? Yes, it's going to be the Changebringers. All right, these things in their first life managed to get 1,800 value, which is, they cost a little bit, or like in that range, so it's about right. Now they're going to be roasting into the Feral Cold Ones here. This is going to be very rough for Hadri's. He doesn't really have ample anti-air to deal with those. The Ripperdactyls with the anti-infantry just kind of get wrecked by the Screamers. So overall, it's a very rough trade. But the Feral Cold Ones do overwhelm the Marauders here, and they're going to be trying to find their way to the middle point. Tzeentch is still pretty good on ammo, sitting at 2,700 value. So the Changeling probably costs like, what, 30, maybe close to 4,000 gold. It's got to be a lot. So he still needs a little bit more to pay for himself. That's for damn sure. On the ground here, we do see the Feral Cold Ones tearing apart the last vestiges of these infantry. And Lord Mazdamundi, he better watch out. These Changebringers could honestly come over and, cook some French cuisine if they want to. I wouldn't be surprised to see them move over and take out Lord Mazdamundi. That would be a big power play. It would lower Lizard leadership. It would go to magic. I think that would be good. I mean, although taking out these Skink Skirmishers isn't bad either. They're the ones threatening the point right here. But prepare for the Bear is certainly ahead in this situation. Changebringers cackling up in the sky as they continue to roast down into these Skink Skirmishers. It kind of makes me think in this matchup you might need Bastiladons with solar engines, because they can just sit back from a safe distance and nail the Changebringers and kill them pretty effectively probably. And probably you got to bring a Tempest Caster too, I think, with the prevalence of Changebringers. Because it seemed like the Lizards had control over many aspects of this battle, but the one thing that's been super problematic for them has been the Air Force, right? Not control, I would say, but advantages on the infantry fights and on the points. But then when those Changebringers really got going, Prepare for the Bear did a great job with them, keeping them alive too. Excellent micro. Chaos Fury's heading over to Objective 3, so they're going to be charging on over. And maybe we'll be able to stop these Skinks. Probably not. I think the 2 Skinks are going to get the capture here. So Hadri's with the sneaky. And sometimes that can happen when you have a big expensive character, a big SE. You can lose a little bit of grasp on the battlefield. On the side, we see Skink Skirmishers duking it out, but they're going to get wrecked pretty badly by the Changebringers. Changebringers almost out of ammo. How much value did they get in this run? 2,700, so probably not even enough to pay for themselves, but pretty close. I mean, they've done some devastating damage. I do think it was a mistake to not come get Mazdamundi. That would have been a brutal blow to the Lizards, and Mazdamundi might even find a way to live in this situation. So Clever Girls and Skink cohorts on their way out to help Lord Mazdamundi. On the middle, we see a bit of a rout from the Dinosaurs. And on this point, we do see the objective being captured by the Lizardmen, but the Furies, as well as the Blue Horrors, are able to get over there. Kroxigor's getting nailed by Tzeentch the Changeling. Brutal stuff. Yeah, that's been good, because normally those Kroxigors are really, really tough to kill, but the Tzeentch, he's just been, on guard duty here all game, just blasting these guys into another dimension. Looking at the points, it is not a triple cap situation at the moment, but if Tzeentch gets this objective back, and it looks like maybe Objective 3 is in danger, although the Lizards do get there. Very, very scrappy play. Hadri's is a super good player, never going to go down easily, that's for damn sure. And he does manage to get Objective 3 here. Objective 1 is owned by Tzeentch, and this far side point is owned by the Lizards as well. So currently, as it stands, Hadri's would win on the 2 objectives if he were to hold it for the remnant of the game, but that is certainly going to be a tall order, as it looks like there's many battles across the battlefield that are going very, very poorly for the Dinosaurs. They do have some Skinks coming in, as well as some Kroxigors with their spanking paddles. Tzeentch is almost out of ammunition. Nice Centaurs of Tzeentch, going to be an excellent play here. So Centaurs get in with a brutal charge. Oh, that was epic. There's like lightning striking down in the distance. This is such a cool map. I love Altar of the Champion. It's a fun one. Really like the aesthetic of this. The Chaos God maps are fun. I think we need more Nurgle and some more Chaos-centric maps that really have a lot of this kind of flavor. They're really rad. But Centaurs of Tzeentch swarming all over the Skinks, taking those guys to Pound Town. On the far side, we do see the objective being taken. Hadri's is basically just trying to get up there with capture weight. He's just running up there with Skink cohorts, but the Furies probably going to be able to intercept them. And also Tzeentch, the Changeling, is going to be on his way over, and most likely we'll get terror routes on these bad boys. Kroxigors will spank down these Chaos Furies pretty well. These are the anti-infantry croc scores. Mazda Chungus on this side does get a bit of a rout. I suspect he's going to be rotating to the middle, but there are Zangors and Sourguts there. Sourguts will be able to hold very, very well. And beautiful flanking here with the Centaurs of Tzeentch. Those bad boys are going to come around the back, and that is going to be a punishing charge. All right, so Croxagore spanking down one unit here. This point barely being held onto. The Clever Girls do arrive to provide a little bit of capture weight, but Tang is going to be arriving himself as Mazda Money and company. It looked like they're going to be rotating to the middle objective while the Croxagores push here. Very, very close game, though. It's very, very close. Currently, though, it looks like it is going to be captured by the Lizards, and it's rapidly going to be turning into a triple, or by the forces of Tzeentch, and is rapidly going to become a triple cap situation for the dinosaurs where they need to get all three objectives, right? So they get held up here, the skink cohorts intercepted by Furies. They'll trade okay into Furies. You know, Furies only have 18 MD, so like mass chaff infantry actually do reasonably okay into them if they have these kind of numbers. Although the skinks are a little bit low from, obviously taking a beating from other sources. Unlimited point, Feral Cold Ones, a good counter against Zangors for sure. They do have good AP. Mazda Money himself is going to be on the way over. And now we see a unit of Screamers being called in by Tzeentch. I think the idea here is to come in and try and finish off Mazda Chungus. Maybe they'll be able to. And the Croxagores and the Skinks, looks like the Furies are pretty close to branking. The old Furies would be disintegrating right now, but those ones are going to be going. Definitely need a slight nerf, but oh, Tzeentch getting the shot on Lord Mazda Money. -1, he is getting the dirty. 11 leadership. I think that Tzeentch is going to finish him off. The Changeling is probably 3,400 value, so he hasn't quite paid for himself yet, but he's pretty damn close. And if he takes down Mazda Money, I mean, obviously that's more than worth it. Because, Lord Kills carry a lot of weight that isn't just value with leadership and other things like that. So, 1,800 right here, and here comes another shot. Shot through the heart. All right, there he goes. Oh, Mazda Money gets steel chaired right in the side by Tzeentch. That was brutal, brutal damage. All right. So far side point, owned by the Dinos. Hadri's going to be on the back foot pretty hard now. He's going to have leadership issues. Lizardmen do have really good base leadership on a lot of their units, but the Skinks, of course, are going to be struggling. Croc scores do give them their little buddy buff. Not the Primal Instincts, but it's somewhere else. But yeah, it was a cool game. Really interesting stuff. We got to see the Air Force dominance that Tzeentch can bring to the table. And we got to see Changeling doing some work, the Skull of Catan. A lot of fun stuff. Overall, yeah, it was a cool build. It was a cool build. I thought that was pretty wild. And I think for Lizardmen, I'm not a very good Lizardmen player, but I think maybe you need to mix in a Solar Engine. Something that can just sit back and put constant pressure on those things. Because if they're just able to run rampant and just do whatever they want, you're going to have a pretty bad time. Although Tzeentch could counter a Solar Engine. That's kind of the problem, right? Let's actually go to the drawing board. I'm really curious about how you could deal with that. I know you can deal with it. It was obviously a close game. But yeah, how'd the Ripperdactyls do? Let's see. 900. Yeah, they had a rough run. They got summoned a couple times. We did see the Umbral Tide might not be bad either. The ROR stalking one to kind of creep up and pressure both Tzeentch as well as those other units. Changebringers have what kind of range? 3,000 value being summoned twice. So they just quite paid for themselves. Just barely, I think. Tzeentch just kind of paid for himself as well. The Skull of Catan guy got 1,200 value. That was a really nice catch. Hadri's probably would have struggled a lot if he didn't get that kill. It would have been a more one-sided game. All right, GG, well played. Got a lot of good replays to cast here. And now we will go to the multiplayer battles. Let's see what we got here. And we're going to go to Lizardmen. All right, so you don't want to just like skew only into that, though. You need to have does Mazda Money have Tempest? I know he has Net. I don't think he has Tempest. So maybe you go with a High Magic Slan. Because Tzeentch does love its Air Force. And Furies are also very meta too. So I think a High Magic Slan would actually be very, very good. Can you even bring that? You can, right? They can get Tempest somewhere on the roster, don't they? Am I just crazy? Okay, there it is. I was like, God damn, I've been doing this a long time. I should know this. Or a Pretzel. So you go Apotheosis, you go Tempest, and then you can do Soul Quench for like shooting at the big SEs. So you have healing, and you have counters to the air, and also to Furies, right? I thought the ground army was fine, right? Just like Skink Cohorts. I think that like that direction works well. Like Skink Cohorts plus Feral Cold Ones, it seems like a very good army comp. Seems very good. Yeah, so Feral Cold Ones, maybe you mix in... So Solar Engines are going to be very weak against Tzeentch is the only thing. That's my only kind of concern for those. But you have Tempest, and then in reserve, I do like having a Ripperdactyl. I think Hadri's had the right idea there, that's for damn sure. I mean, he's a much better player than I am, but I'm just trying to scheme it myself. 126 versus 120. Yeah, so you have one anti-large, and then you got one anti-infantry to help against like Zangors and things like that. I like the Croxagore Power Fist. I think they were pretty sweet. The Cohort of Waddle is awesome. And from here, do we get Solar Engine? What about double Solar Engine? Could they do okay? I mean, you do have the Apotheosis, right? And then from here, we cut one of you guys. And we get the the Amazon Barbs are kind of an interesting one, the Amazon Barbaras. But I think these guys are better just because they have better range, like the 140 range. Yeah, so you creep a little something like this, right? And then we can get just the Red Crested Skinks are kind of like, I have an awkward amount of money left. Yeah, we get a Skink Cohort Javelin or something like that. This is probably a nice kit. Like, you have plenty of anti-armor. You have good anti-air. The Bastiladon plus the Amazon Barbaras. Where the hell did I just put them? Oh, did I just accidentally delete them out? I was wondering why I had so much money. Okay. Amazon Barbaras, and we just go ahead and get you. So, yeah, you have this little goon squad here. The Umbral Tide should be able to... They have stock, so you can sneak up and potentially put pressure on Tzeentch. The Bastiladon Solar Engine is pretty tanky. Tzeentch would take a long time to kill it with Apotheosis. I think it can keep them honest. What about like a Skink Chief in the sky? Probably not. Screamers will just tear him to shreds, so you're going to have a pretty bad time with that. Now, as far as reinforcing army goes, I don't hate shielded shielded Saurus. I always feel like they're kind of nice for getting up on the points. Cavalry in this matchup feels kind of bad. Screamers just trade really well into them, so I think you just go with Feral Clever Girls. And what about the idea of Pterodon Riders, right? Like a couple Pterodon Riders to just kite, because they do have 360 shooting and they can fire while moving. So you can kind of kite the Screamers and then also threaten the Air Force. Maybe you mix some of those in, right? The Bastiladon Rev Crystal isn't a bad idea. You know, having, you know, healing on a stick on top of your other character is going to be nice. And for the rest of the army, Temple Guard, no thank you. Tzeentch's magic is too good at killing big targets. So somebody joined the lobby here. It's pretty funny. I'm doing videos. Don't worry about it. Cohort of Sotek, maybe just more of these. Let me do this. And from here, maybe we just get 2 more spears. I don't know. Or we just swarm out on cohorts, which is probably the smarter play, honestly. And just get a couple javelin cohorts. And yeah, something along these lines. Something to try. GG, well played. See you guys around. And that's going to be it for tonight.